What is up, YouTube? GA Stance House back in the garage. Today, I have a little bit of a special announcement. So, as you probably saw from the title, I got a new project car. And as you can see, the Chevy Colorado truck that has been parked in the driveway and that I have not made content on at all is gone. The truck is officially gone. I was planning on selling it and finally did get rid of it. And I got a car in a trade. That just worked out perfect. So in today's video, I'm going to show you that car, let you know what the plans are for it. It's a pretty cool ride that I got here. And but for now, before I get to that, I'm gonna go ahead and insert some footage from me working on the MR2, getting that ready for boost. We're moving right along, so we're on the road to getting this SC14 Supercharger build on the 2ZZ started. So if you've watched some of the recent videos, you know I got the water-to-air intercooler installed with the heat exchanger up front. So that is going to be how I keep this engine cool and keep the air intake temperatures down with this mid-engine car, especially with this supercharger here right on the exhaust side of the engine. With my custom-made exhaust, it gets real close. Piggybacking off of that, we do have to monitor those intake temps. I think you can probably get some of that data from your ECU. So I think like your math maybe sends that data to the ECU, but what I'm gonna do today is install some gauges to help me monitor this thing whenever it gets boosted and whenever I'm running it. That way I can make sure everything is kosher. As you probably saw in a recent video, I already installed my air to fuel gauge. So that is already in the car, wired in. Now, what I'll say is my wiring, I kind of was stupid and didn't think ahead. So currently I just have those two things wired in separately to some ignition switches. The water-to-air intercooler water pump is wired into an ignition switch, but that just triggers a relay straight from the battery. So what I need to do now, instead of just running those off of two separate ignition switches, I'm going to basically transfer that relay to run this whole fuse panel. So currently the way I have it is the relay is powered straight from the battery, and then my ignition switch triggers the relay, and the relay then sends an ignition switch signal to my water pump under the car. Instead, I'm going to have the relay be powered by the battery once again, but I'm basically going to flip-flop some wires so that the trigger triggers the relay and the relay powers this, and I have that power straight from the battery running through all of these, and they're all powered on ignition switch. The switch that I have in my dash to run the water-to-air intercooler pump, I will just wire that into the new wire that comes from that fuse panel, and then that switch right there will just turn on and off that one circuit. So the rest of the circuits, I'll actually go ahead and plug my air to fuel ratio gauge into that as well, and then I'll have these three gauges. So what I have here is oil pressure gauge, boost gauge. We're gonna go ahead and try to hook up all of our boost lines and whatnot, and then I have air intake gauge, which has two readings. So it'll have two sensors, one on the inlet to the water-to-air intercooler and one on the outlet. This I tried to save some money on, so most of the gauges I found were like $100 for a similar air intake temp gauge. This one was only $50 and it had to ship from Taiwan. So hoping that that works well enough. If the readings aren't completely accurate, I think that'll be okay. As long as I can kind of tell the difference between the inlet and the outlet. And that way I can make sure that my intercooler is actually doing something and cooling the air. So, and then I got my 3 gauge pillar pod, whatever you want to call it. So that'll go on the pillar. That definitely has some trimming to do. That's just a universal one. And then I have a single pod which will hold the air to fuel ratio gauge right in front of my face. That way I can keep an eye on the air to fuel ratio. All right guys, so here is my little circuit that I drew up. So relay's already in, it's already grounded. It already has a signal trigger from the 12-volt source. It already has the 12-volt constant from the battery. The only thing I need to do now is swap the signal that is currently going to my water pump. I'm going to swap it to run into this fuse box. And these are pretty much all going to get 5 amp fuses in them. I might put a little bit bigger one in the water pump just because I feel like could be a possibility that runs higher. I don't know. But then basically I have my ignition switch running through this whole fuse box, and then I just have to hook up fuses, and then each one of these posts on the side will have that 12-volt source coming from them. So I can hook up each of my gauges. So water pump, I'll put the switch in between that there to power that on and off, and then air intake, oil pressure, boost, and wideband. Forgot to write boost there. So we're gonna go ahead and wire that in. All right, guys, so now I am left with my pillar pod with all this crap hanging off of it. So I am going to get it in the car and start wiring up my signal wires and my ground wires and everything else. So yeah, let's get to it. All right, so everything is wired in. At least all the gauges are wired in, other than the intake temperature. The actual sensors aren't wired in, and the pressure gauge, I still need to get that sensor into the engine. So all the signals are wired in, all the grounds are wired in, and I'm gonna tidy them up after I do a test. So I'm gonna just go ahead and connect the battery here. Those gauges are all hooked up, other than just the sensors now. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, we're back. It's the next day. I'm gonna go ahead and get these gauges finished up and get the boost line hooked up, oil pressure sensor in the engine, and what's the last one? Oh, the air intake temperature sensors. So I need to get those into the intercooler. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Let's get it going. So I'm starting with the boost gauge. I actually had to order a 10-foot piece of line because the one that came with the glow shift gauge was not quite long enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace that. It'll run down here along with all my wires and then straight back through the grommet. So I went ahead and put the line in. There's a little nipple. It's the perfect size. It's a 1/8 barb on the lower portion of the intake manifold. So it just sticks right on there with the clamp. Ran it up through the firewall, and then it currently runs up to my gauges. So that gauge is now all hooked up. Next, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and install the oil pressure gauge. So if you don't know how to install one of those, you basically just tee off of where your stock oil pressure sensor plugs in, and you plug in this gauge along with your stock sensor. So in my case, here's my T. Here's my glow shift sensor, and I just installed one of these into my Toyota Matrix. It's the exact same process, so if you actually are looking for how to do that, go back and watch that video. It was just one of the last videos I uploaded, and that'll walk through the whole process for that. All right, guys, the oil pressure sensor is all hooked up, as you can see. Can't really quite tell what I'm filming right now, but hopefully you can see the two gauges plugged into the T. So that is all done, and the oil pressure gauge is ready to go. Last thing I need to do, last gauge I need to hook up is the inlet and outlet to my intercooler for the air intake temperature. So these are a 3/8 NPT thread on these sensors. So what I have here, you have to drill a 37/64 hole, and then that hole is so that you can tap the 3/8 NPT and thread your sensor in. So what I'm gonna do is put in a sensor on the inlet side here, and then the outlet side on the back side. So I'm gonna go ahead and drill 2 holes and put those sensors in. So we'll go ahead and do a little bit of magic here. So, and got inlet, outlet all sealed up. Got those RTV'd. You could use Teflon tape on those, but because basically it's just a real thin section of threads, I figured RTV would seal better than Teflon tape. So got those in. All I gotta do is wire those up to these blue, green, and black wires that are hanging out. So I'm just gonna check the instructions, make sure I know which ones are inlet and outlet, and I'll get those wired in right now. All right, guys, got the wires ran through the firewall back here. They run up along the side and up to those wires that came from the Gage. So now we got everything hooked up, and you can see now I got temperature 63 degrees, sounds correct for the garage here. So that's good news. Got my AFR gauge mounted right behind the steering wheel here, where I can keep a good eye on it. And yeah, got a nice little cockpit going on here, which is pretty sweet. So I can consider Gage is done. I just got to loom up all of the wires that run along the door sill there. Kind of running out of things to do on that thing before I'm ready to plug the ECU in and make boost. So we're getting really close. What up?
Rev up your engines!
Getting any heat in here?
Oh yeah, getting some hot air.
Got the fit in the garage, doing some maintenance.
Yep. Have fun maintenance.
Fun maintenance. Got the old radiator out. So how much was the shop gonna charge you to do a radiator and water pump?
It was gonna be like $900.
$900, man.
Do your own maintenance, guys.
Yep.
Save money. How much did you spend on parts?
Well, I got the radiator.
Koyorad.
Yeah, Koyorad radiator. I got a thermostat, water pump, belt, tensioner pulley. It was like $220 off Rock Auto. So
totally worth it.
we're not sponsored by Rock Auto, but you got that one for free.
We
Rock
should
Auto.
be. We're not ready for sponsors yet. Is she mint, Matt?
Yeah. Always good to have Mr. Lake Bender back in the garage.
Yep. This thing's quiet. I mean, you can almost hear Creed over the sound of the thing.
Oh, I didn't even think about that, dude. I'm gonna get demonetized.
Oh no.
You can almost hear Creed.
Alright.
Blowing heat. Yeah.
And now, hope you guys are enjoying the MR2 content, but now it is time to reveal the car that I got in the trade for the truck. This is a 2014 GTI, Volkswagen GTI. It is the 2.0 liter turbo TSI engine. It also has the APR stage 1 tune on it, so it makes about 310 to 320 foot-pounds of torque, which is crazy. It is the 4-door Wolfsburg edition. I'm not 100% sure on all of the extras that come on the Wolfsburg. I think it's mostly interior bits. I'm still learning a lot about the car and what is cool about it. But the car was a one owner, and the story is that I got a text from my brother earlier this week, and the question that he sent me was, are you selling any of your cars? So obviously I have a bunch of cars. A couple of them are projects, a couple of them are, you know, ones that I'm daily driving. And I know I was planning on selling the truck, so I responded, yeah, you know, what what's the deal? And he said that his boss's car lost compression on one of the cylinders, and this is that car. So this was my brother's boss's car that he bought brand new in 2014. It's a one owner. It's been taken to the dealership for pretty much all of the maintenance, and it's been really kept up on. The exterior is in, honestly, like mint condition. I've never owned a car that looked this nice. The interior is also in great condition. Nothing to complain about there. Everything will clean up really nice. It's got 100,000 miles on it. And the issue is, like I said, that it lost compression on cylinder 3. So the dealership quoted basically to put a new engine in it. They didn't want to rebuild the engine that's in it. And it was just way too expensive for him to justify it. And he was just ready to move on, which I don't blame him. But he was also really sad to see it go, obviously. So I'm glad I could take it out of his hands, probably save it from getting parted out, honestly. But yeah, I'm gonna try to get this thing running. It'll probably turn into a daily driver because it is a new car, and it would be nice to drive around something other than this beater Matrix that I drive, although I love the Matrix, don't get me wrong. But the goal is to open it up, dig into it a little bit, see what's wrong with cylinder number 3. I'm hoping maybe it just needs rings. There could be some other issues with it, depending on, you know, if anything catastrophic happened. Worst case scenario is it does need a new engine, and I have to find a used engine and put it in. In that case, I still think I make out pretty okay on it, pretty good. But the plan right now is to be able to rebuild the engine, get it running for a minimal cost, probably a bunch of labor, but that's all part of the fun, isn't it? So I still have a lot of research to do on all of the, you know, problem areas of these cars and figuring out what I should do to it while I'm tearing it apart and getting it running again. Also, obviously, there's some good aftermarket support for these things, and you could do some pretty cool stuff to it, make it look nicer, make it, you know, a little bit more power. We'll see. For now, the goal is just to get it running and then see what else we can do to it. All right, guys, I just want to say thanks for watching this video. Never thought I'd say I'd be getting a Volkswagen. It was just as much a surprise to me as it is to anyone else. So it's a cool car. I think GTIs are cool. So we will see if I can get that thing running. Expect a little bit of content on it. I'll see how the content does and then decide how much more I do to the car. So if you're excited about the GTI stuff, make sure you leave a like and leave a comment. Let me know, because I know we got a bunch of Toyota stuff and, well, not Toyota, LS, RX-8 stuff. So yeah, that's all I got. So I'm gonna end it here. Stay tuned for more cool stuff in the garage. See you guys later.